This is Short-Term Rental Management, the show that is all about short-term rental property management with your host, yours truly, Luke Carl.
This episode of the Short Term Show is brought to you by the Short Term Shop. If you're interested in buying a short-term rental in one of the top vacation markets in America, just go to theshorttermshop.com and click Get Connected with an Agent. If you purchase a home with the shop, you'll have access to all of our client-only benefits, such as training on how to manage your short-term rental. So we'll teach you everything you need to know, from how to set up your Airbnb and Vrbo listings to how to use the property management software that you'll need to streamline your business, all the way down to helping you source your local boots on the ground like cleaners, handy people, etc. We've taught thousands of people just like you how to buy and manage their vacation homes from anywhere in the world. So head on over to theshorttermshop.com and click Get Connected with an Agent to get started. I do have to mention that we're brokered by EXP or else I get in trouble. We'll see you guys over there.
There you are. There he is. Michael Baum with the bomb. Baum with the bomb.
That's right.
How you doing? How you doing, brother?
Good, Luke. Good morning. How are things in Florida?
Am I in Florida? I am in Florida. Yeah, it's wonderful. I'm originally from Nebraska, you know, and flip-flops in February is not a bad gig. Of course, then when those hurricanes come, it ruins everything.
Yeah, but they're only once in a while. It is 40 degrees and raining here in the beautiful western half of Washington State. What are you going to do?
Washington State. Awesome.
Yep,
beautiful.
That's where I live.
That's great. And I know you from Bigger Pockets. You're very active on the Bigger Pockets forum, which I am as well. The short-term forum got its start in, I think it was 2016, and I've been on there since day one. And back in the day, it was really just, you were back in the part of that original crew, and it was like, it was you. It was Paul, obviously Paul, who's world famous at this point, Mr. Sandy.
That's right.
He's very elusive. I've tried to get him in action here at the on a podcast with us many times, and he says no. And then, of course, Big John.
Big John, yeah.
Big John, he's in, I think he's in Maryland.
I thought it was in South Carolina.
South Carolina. I had the right coast. And Big John, another buddy of mine that I need to get him on. He's got a lot of long terms as well, and so he's been a great mentor for me in that space.
That's his base.
Yep. So that's how I know you. And of course you help out with the Bigger Pockets short-term boot camp, which is really cool. And I've seen your name a million times, and we've just recently become acquainted with each other and outside of that, and just wanted to have you on and kind of tell your story a little bit. And tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, so I am from Ohio. It's where I was born. We moved to Idaho when I was probably 7 or 8, and I grew up there essentially between the town of Pocatello and Coeur d'Alene. Then we moved to Western Washington. My dad was a quality control guy over at Goodyear, and then he moved to Bucyrus, Erie, which was based in Pocatello. So I've been married for 25 years. I have 3 adult children. I have 3 grandchildren.
What?
And I've been retired actually for 12 years this year. I have a degenerative neurological disorder that was diagnosed in 2011. So that has put me on the back burner for working. So one of the reasons I've always wanted to have a house in North Idaho on Lake Coeur d'Alene, which if you can see my background, that is the view from our deck out onto Lake Coeur d'Alene. And essentially I wanted to have a place that we could retire to. That was basically the goal. Take the grandkids to go do stuff on the lake, have a good time, and everything kind of came together in early 2017. We'd been, saving, and this house had popped up, and it was like right up here at the level of what we could afford. And initially we hadn't really thought about short-term renting it. We just were going to get it and hold it and use it as much as we could. And then we came to realize we weren't going to be over there all the time. It's about an 8 hour drive from our house.
So wait a minute, hold on. How did you 8 hours from your house? How did you fall in love with this area? How did you even know about the area?
Well, I grew up there.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah, I grew up. So you see the image behind me. I grew up on the other side of that hill, essentially, out on
okay.
the yeah on the other side of the lake.
So you've just
Not
always
on
been
the
in love with the area.
yeah, exactly. It was the area I knew pretty well. I'd been on Lake Coeur d'Alene quite a bit. Coeur d'Alene used to be a really small town, and it's blown up quite a bit in the last 15, 20 years. So but we're about 30, our house is like 36 miles down the lake in a small town called Harrison. Lake Coeur d'Alene is quite large. It's almost 50,000 acres deep, 220 feet deep, not super deep, but pretty deep lake, cold water, of course. And for all intents and purposes, it's just it's a really pleasant area. And we're on the east side of the lake. It's less populated. The west side of the lake has a few more houses along it. And like I said, we're in a small town called Harrison.
Okay, and do we fish in this lake? What do
Oh,
we
of
do in the
course.
lake?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Fishing is huge. Yeah. Everything under the sun is in this lake. Now, all the sunfish you can imagine, all kinds of panfish, and then trout, steelhead, of course,
Do you
brook
have a boat?
trout, Dolly Varden. Yeah. It's all in this lake.
We have a boat.
I do have a boat. It is a 24-foot four winds. It's not really a fishing boat. It is just a get around the lake boat. We are going to sell it and get a pontoon boat. Makes a little bit more sense with the grandkids running around on it. So that's the plan this year. We're out on the lake as much as we can. It's about an hour and a half by boat to back to the main town of Coeur d'Alene. So it's kind of fun to hop in the boat and cruise on up there and go have lunch in town. Cost you an arm and a leg in fuel, but what the hell?
Okay, that's great. And is this the only rental property you have, or?
It is the only rental property. I know I post so much, you'd think I'd have like 60 or 70 properties. They're like, look at my expertise. I'm so good and listen to my advice. But I actually only have one place. It's pretty busy. We have all 5 stars. So we've been doing it. This is going to be our 6th year of running it. And like I said, we run it from 8 hours away. So it's a short-term rental, long distance management that everybody's trying to get their minds around.
Mm-hmm. Yes, which is
So
what we're talking about here, of course,
yeah,
on the management show. But so when you first started, like, you purchased this property not with the intent really of renting it. You kind of fell into that. What was the catalyst there? And then walk me through that. Did you put it on Airbnb first, Verbo first, both at the same time? Walk me through
both at
that.
the same time, and it was Bigger Pockets actually. I was living on the forums. I joined in 2016, just about the time the short-term rental forum came on. I was reading everything I possibly could about doing a short-term rental, what it was going to take. 5, 6 years ago, I wouldn't say infancy, but there are a lot more systems now that weren't there. People just trying to figure out, everybody was still trying to figure out the best way. You didn't have all the PMS systems that's kind of redundant, but PM systems that did the work and for you. And I don't use any of those. I do everything manually because it's just one place. And I don't need to put a layer in between me and the guests. I do things probably quite a bit differently than people like you who have a lot more doors. And um, uh, some people like to be kind of aloof and kind of back off and not. But I mean, the guests have my cell phone number.
Oh.
They can call me, they can text me, they get right to me. But we run a really tight ship. So I don't get calls in the middle of the night because I keep things smooth and I keep things right.
In other words, they don't have a reason to call you because the house is rocking.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Maintenance is high. So Bigger Pockets basically showed me the way to do it. I dropped it on VRBO and Airbnb at the same time. And when we first went live, the first year, like most, and we're in an area that doesn't have a ton of rentals. Okay. We're not like Pigeon Forge where there are, thousands of rentals running and it's gets a ton of visitors. Coeur d'Alene does get a lot of visitors. The lake gets a lot of visitors, but for the most part, it's mostly locals, and there's only one or two other in my immediate area, and maybe only 100 on the lake. All said and done. So you never really know when you build something, start something out, and try to build it up how it's going to do. In in the end, it's been very successful because people want to come. You can't really lose with a good lakefront property. You can't lose with a good mountaintop property. You can't lose with a good beachfront property. It's always going to be in demand. People always want to get away. And one thing that I wanted to do that after reading so much was to cater to families. Our house is fairly large. It's 2,700 square feet. It's 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. So it sleeps 10, 12 in a pinch. So we're basically set up to cater to families and extended families or two families or whatever. We have a kids bunk room. It's dedicated just for the kids. There's two bunk beds in there. They can sleeps four. Adults do it's their adult bunk beds, so that people stay in there if they want or if they have enough people. But VRBO was bringing in 95% of our bookings in the first 3 years. The first year, of course, was lean. We were pretty careful. I was nervous. This is, for everybody to who's brand new starting out, you're always going to be nervous. You got all this money invested and all this time, and I just bought all this furniture and I bought all these plates, and who's going to go in there and they're going to do this or that? It's going to be like, oh my gosh, and do I want to have a dog? Because the dogs are going to run around and it's going to be the worst. And you're always nervous. But in the end, if you properly prepare and you vet your guests, you can have as good of an experience as they're going to have, because you want to make their experience, and then it makes your experience good. If they have a bad experience, they're going to be hard on you. If you give them everything that they need and way more than they expect, then your experience with the guests is going to be primo. It's all you really want. I mean, you under promise and over deliver, and that's kind of my mantra. I just basically lay it out there, and people show up and they're like, holy mackerel, there is more small appliances in this kitchen than I even knew existed. What? 3 coffee makers? How can that be?
Yeah.
You've stayed in a lot of short-term rentals. I've stayed in quite a few short-term rentals. It is shocking how many short-term rentals are set up to fail because they don't take the time to offer the guests the things that they're going to need. And I don't automatically assume that everybody's going to want to make waffles with a waffle maker, but there's a waffle maker in there, along with a French press and 2 coffee makers and a Keurig and a toaster oven and an instant pot and a pressure cooker. And who's going to use a pressure cooker on the lake?
My
Nobody.
mother, maybe.
But maybe somebody's going to want to we're going to make carnitas, and I got a big pork butt, and I'm going to toss it in there, and it's electric, and it'll be done in 8 hours, and I can shred it and be good to go. And all the stuff we have in our short-term rental has been used. Nothing just sits. So I know I did the right thing by putting all those crazy little appliances in there for people to use. And once we got rolling, year 2, we had to do some work. The house was in really good shape. It was built in 97, so it didn't need a ton of stuff, but it needed some paint, touch-ups on the outside. It needed repair of the deck railings because they were getting loose and they weren't properly installed. So we had to take the spring to really get it go. We put it on the market right away, so we were able to not depreciate, but to expense those expenses. So it was available. We actually had bookings, but we were really selective. Most of the bookings were people we knew or family, and then a few, people with a lot of reviews, just to kind of And we let people know this is the first time we're doing this. So I'm relying on you as a brand new guest to tell me the truth. What was it like? How are the beds? Were the towels fluffy enough? Did you have enough stuff to do whatever? Did you like the beach? And the beach is always something you always wonder about. We don't have a white sandy beach. We have a weedy rocky beach because that's the way beaches are on Lake Coeur d'Alene. They are rocky, and we keep it clean and keep it trimmed back. But I'll tell you, when spring rolls around, this is a logging community. Every loose log on the lake ends up on our beach. It is the worst. So every spring we get a team of people out there cleaning up and making sure. But there's a cottonwood stump on there that's 8 feet tall that I cannot get off the beach. It's been there forever, and it's
So,
going to sit there.
so they're using the lake to move the lumber, and then the lumber that like gets lost, it washes up on your beach.
No, they stopped moving things up the lake by bar or by the standard, tugboat train. They haven't done that in a while. That happens farther up the lake when they get to the river back in Coeur d'Alene. But down by our, it's just first of all, it's other landowners that live on the lake that cut down a tree and they just let it fall into the lake and let the lake take it away. And that you can always tell that because it looks like it's a freshly cut ponderosa pine that's 60 feet tall that's been trimmed back and it just comes rolling in. And the reason why we're on the open lake, we're not in a bay, and the Coeur d'Alene River is to our north about half a mile, and the St. Joe River is about 3 or 4 miles by lake south of us, and they're both in feeds. And for all intents and purposes, logs end up in there, and they're both deep rivers. They just dump their stuff in the spring into the lake, and the two competing currents basically meet within a few hundred feet of our property. So they just end up coming out there in the spring. You can sit out there and you can just count. There'll be 30 deadheads and logs floating around out there, and where we're at, the lake's about a mile and a half wide, maybe a mile wide. So sometimes they land on the other side, but a lot of the time they land on our beach. So it's gonna be a bit of a pain.
In your area, do I have to be on the lake, or can I be across the street from the lake to be rented? And how many rentals are there?
Yeah, so technically we are not directly on the lake. We have a small road in front of us, our residential road. It's a chip seal road, so it's kind of like it's paved. And then you can just basically go down this little hill to our beach. So we are technically not right on the lake. We have no problem renting. We could probably get more if we had direct lake access, and we could probably get more if we had a dock. There are moratoriums on docks in our specific area of the lake, so I cannot have a dock at this time. So that is one drawback. I get a lot of questions. Hey, do you have a dock? And I'm like, no, we don't have a dock. But luckily, the town of Harrison is less than half a mile right up the road, and there is a public marina there that you can dock your boat for free for up to 72 hours or reserve a spot. So that usually covers everything, because then you don't have to worry about your boat being out in the middle of the lake, getting pounded by the waves and stuff, and people can just go into town. On the lake itself, there are probably about 100 to 200 rentals of various sizes and qualities. It runs the gamut. There's quite a few 100-year-old little lake cabins, which is what we initially looked at that was for sale just down the road from where we bought. Was a very small little 800 square foot lake cabin. It was pretty reasonable, but there was a huge ponderosa pine pushing on the house. It's pushing on the house so much that the roof was redone around part of the pine. So it's that close. And the hillside was active, and Highway 97 runs up behind it. And the last thing you really wanted is an active hillside pushing on the house. So we didn't get that. And then we waited until then we saw this house that came up, and then we bought it because it was ready to go. But there are a few like log mansions on the lake that are quite large. There's a 8,000 square foot thing down the lake farther to the south. It's beautiful, but it rents for, I think it's 4,000 a night. That's not on Airbnb or VRBO. I don't know where, it's probably a luxury property rental company that manages it for
Do
them.
you have management companies in the area? What's the population of the entire area?
Okay, so Coeur d'Alene itself is about 45, 50,000 people.
Oh, it's large. It's pretty big. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good size. Now, the town of Harrison is 267.
Okay.
It's very small, but the town itself is very small, but the whole district that encompasses the Harrison town is quite large. Basically, once you get outside of Coeur d'Alene on the far end of the lake, as you go around, it turns into Harrison, and then it's another 30 miles down to the house. And that's all Harrison proper, essentially. And then farther south, almost to the county line to when it goes to the next county. So it's pretty sparsely populated where I am at. There is a pretty fancy community called Gazer that is, it's got I think it's a Jack Nicholas designed course there. And that has a lot of very expensive homes. There are a few rentals in there, and people are there for the golf pretty much. I mean, you're looking at $2 to $3 million places in there, along with $150,000 golf, membership that goes along
Yeah.
with.
Yeah. Golf gets
So
expensive. Hey, you mentioned you give your guests your cell phone number. Do they use it? Do you encourage them to use it? You've been doing this for a while now. I find that, it's a tough one for me because some guests I do really want to talk to and enjoy their company, and other guests I'm like, dude, we're not gonna be friends, you know. It's just dealing with the general public. So, uh, do you ever get any wild, wacky things happen when they call you, or do they not call very often? Or
I can probably count on one hand the times that they've actually called with any kind of real problem. Um, we had the air conditioning unit, the main air conditioning unit for the house go out. It was almost 100 degrees at the house. And they called, and they were the nicest could be. And I told them I would get the guy out there to take a look at it. And of course, the compressor had actually, what ended up happening was the cooling fan for the compressor had died, and that basically burnt the compressor up. They still gave us a 5-star review. They were there for 3 more days, and I have a ton of fans in the house to move air around. So they were just moving air around, and all the bedrooms and just about every room has an overhead fan. And that was our worst. Otherwise, I don't get calls that often. I get texts more, and it's more like, hey, Mike, I broke the carafe on the coffee maker. I am so sorry. And then I just say, that's okay. Or we broke a mug. But I was a little bit hesitant at first to give a personal cell phone. I always wanted to do it. I thought I would get a burner phone, essentially just another cheap phone that I could get texts and phone calls on and use it only for the house. But it hasn't been an issue. We don't, I'm not on the phone that often. I have never gotten a middle of the night call about a trouble. But the key, I think, to it is maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. You don't want something to break. You don't want a hot water tank to go out. You don't want the furnace to go out. You don't want the AC to go out. So I have got guys out there twice a year maintaining the systems like clockwork. They don't miss anything. I pay for a service package usually for each device, each one of the systems, and they come out and they take care of it. So they change filters. I don't have to worry about it, and neither do the guests. They don't need to worry about something breaking down. And other than minor breakage of, I've never had. I had somebody take the waffle maker. It was a $5 waffle maker. Why they wanted it, I don't know. I don't even know which guest took it because it's stored in a cubby inside of a pantry. And, my cleaner didn't notice it was missing. So I bought 2 more when they were on sale for $5. And I put one out, and there's one in storage because apparently waffle makers are the thing to take, and then beach towels. That's the worst. I have dedicated beach towels for people. And I get them at the end of the season and I stock up. I get them for $3-4 each. And then I just put them in the owner's closet and I bust them out, get them washed and put them on the shelf. And then half a dozen of them will disappear during the summer. And then I just buy more. And it's kids. They got them. They throw them in their bag. Mom's trying to get them going. You got a 10-year-old. They grab everything. They just jam it in their bags and get out there. And the towel walks off. No big deal.
Yeah,
It's
I
those things
agree.
you have to.
I agree.
Yeah.
When people first get into this, they're so terrified that somebody's going to call them in the middle of the night, and you're living proof that. I mean, it doesn't happen to me either. First of all, I'm not even giving them the option. I don't have my phone number readily available. I have a phone system. Everything's a system, so I use
Right.
Open Phone, which is like it's like, it's a third-party phone system, and it's the only one that I've found that actually works with Airbnb, because Airbnb does two-step and it doesn't like to integrate with third-party,
like Google,
phones.
Google phone numbers, things like that.
Correct. Yeah. And Google Voice is just horrible, right?
Yeah.
So I use Open Phone, and I have somebody, in the office, virtual assistant, if you will, that when the phone rings, they answer it. And so, we have a phone number. It's tied to Airbnb and Verbo, especially Verbo. They're very good at giving your phone number out, even though a lot of times you don't realize they're doing it. But still, nobody ever calls. And I agree with you, man. You gotta offer a nice product, This episode of the Short Term Management Show is brought to you by Short Term Rental, Long Term Wealth. This is the book in the STR space, written by my lovely wife, Avery Carl. It has hundreds of reviews on Amazon, and it will teach you literally everything you need to know about STR. Short-term rental, long-term wealth, the book, wherever books are sold.
Right. That's always the key. If you don't keep up on the house, and I feel, the thing is that now that we have things working and it looks nice, it's comfortable, we always get compliments. That's the one thing I didn't do, is I didn't do professional photos. And if anybody who reads a Bigger Pocket forum will see that nearly 90% of everybody does professional photos, which I don't disagree with. But so often when you get a professional photo done, it's been retouched, it's been brightened. It looks like the sun is right over here in the corner. There's so much sunlight streaming in. It's beautiful. It's amazing. People show up and it's kind of a cave, a little more cave-like. And I didn't want people to think to themselves, wow, it looked nicer in the photos. Don't you think, Marge? Yes, Bob, I do believe it looked better in the photos.
Yeah.
I don't want that. So I have really good I read up on particular, on professional photography and how amateurs do it. I got a buddy of mine who is a semi-professional photographer. He does regular work. And then he has, and he's been published. He's got quite a few photos, and he gave me some pointers, and I got a good lens for the Sony camera I've got. And I put it on a tripod and lower. So many people are taking shots from like up here, and not everybody is 6.5, 7 feet tall to look down on a couch. So everything's from the level. And I think the photos came out good, and I didn't retouch them. And I always get compliments. It looks so much better than the photos. It's so much more pleasant. And that had me, of course, a little bit worried. And I think I'm going to get professional photos done this year to change up the listing. But the decor hasn't changed. I haven't made any adjustments. I don't put new artwork on the wall every year. Frankly, people are so caught up with the design that they forget about the basics. And that's something that I preach quite a bit in the forums, is that you get the basics, as, perfect as you can. You can't let perfect get in the way of the good, right? If you've heard that term before, you can't let trying to be perfect get away of being good, but then you can build around it. Good sheets, good towels, good beds, good furniture. Everything else comes after that. Good artwork on the walls. People do forget. How many photos have we seen that people, hey, take a look at my Airbnb, not my short-term rental. And by the way, everybody, it's a short-term rental.
Yeah.
Airbnb is a platform like Kleenex.
Yes. I agree there. You are an engineer in a former life. Is that true?
Yes.
I do see a lot of engineers that take to this business for some reason, way more so than long-term rental, or at least single-family long-term rental. There are quite a few of them in commercial real estate, but for whatever reason, they seem to gravitate to short-term. Can you explain why that is? Is it a similar brain?
Well, not all engineers know each other, so I can't speak to everybody. But for me, so I'm a pretty gregarious person. My life, I was an engineer at Intel for 19 years, but most of that, a good part of that time, I was spent doing what they call technical marketing. So I was like a platform expert on our particular platform that we worked on. And I did a lot of videos. I did a lot of presentations in front of thousands of people. I would get on stage and demonstrate products and make jokes and talk about stuff and interact with our executive staff. So for me, the customer service slash hospitality side comes pretty easy. I can talk to anybody. I'm pretty easy going. I'm not a hard case in any way. A lot of engineers are uh, uh, they're lab rats for all intents and purposes. They work at their desks, they work on their systems, they work on whatever their project is, and they go home, and they're very left brain type people. And getting into short-term rentals, because it is a hospitality industry, kind of allows them to explore a side of themselves that they may want to kind of branch out. Like, how well can I do interacting with customers? Because right now I do numbers. I work with numbers all day long. I XYZ. I do this. I do that. I'm a systems engineer. I'm a civil engineer. I design a roadway. Blah blah blah. And you never get to see oftentimes the results of your labors, right? What you've just designed goes out into the world, and you hope that it works and stays together, and you put all your time and effort into it. And in the end, but with the short-term rental, you're interacting with your guests. You like talking to them, and they tell you, oh man, I'm having such a good time. And nothing makes you feel better when somebody says, this is beautiful, this is amazing, I can't believe it, I mean, we're here and we don't want to really leave, but I know we got to go, and thanks so much for such a great time, we'll remember it forever. And they're posting photos of what they did all over their Instagram or whatever, and you feel pretty happy about it. And for a lot of engineers, you don't get that satisfaction because you're stuck inside a lab all day. That's my guess. And
I've
for me,
never
that's
even
something.
thought of it that from that perspective. I always just assumed that it was the systematizing and all that was attracting them to because there are so many softwares and numbers to crunch and things like that. But I think you're probably right. It's they can get into that engineer brain, which I got a bit of one of those myself. But at the same time, it's and also an outlet to get them out of it. Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I do agree with that, that the initially the minutia of getting everything set up the way you want it. But once it's set up, it just rolls, right? It just kind of rolls if you did the job the first time. And then you do see the fruits of those labor. You see where things worked out and why this system is working and why this one didn't. And I can make this change. But once it's going, it's really down to the hospitality part and keeping the guests happy. So we have all 5-star reviews on our property. The only thing we get occasionally is people expect a Hawaii or a Florida white powder sand beach. And even though I am very specific, it is a rocky beach, but people do still comment saying, well, there were some rocks. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, they're rocks. That's the way it is. We're not allowed to have sandy beaches. You can't bring in sand in Idaho. It's against the law because it clogs the lake up. So
Very interesting. Let's talk about Mike's picks, Mike's deals of the day.
oh yeah.
I love that. So, do you have any recommendations? I love getting gadgets and knickknacks and things. Well, before I ask you, I do want to point out something you already said. If the items in your kitchen, etc., or in the home in general, are not wearing out, you're not making money. Okay. So we hear that a lot where people are complaining that, oh, I bought this, you keep saying waffle maker. I bought this waffle maker, but it broke 6 months later. Well, that's a good thing. It means you're renting your house, right? So just
right?
replace it and move on. But you are notorious for coming up with these, knickknacks and gadgets and smoking deals, really. So, do you have any to offer?
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, I mean, just, for everybody watching, go sign up for the Bigger Pockets. If you're not a member, the value that you get out of Bigger Pockets for any kind of rental or everything is discussed under the sun there. If it has to do with real estate, it's there, whether it be, wholesaling or multifamily or commercial, it's all right there. And I basically hang out really only in the short-term rental forum. So I post Mike's deals of the day. It's something that I have some little bots set up to kind of pull stuff in that I might want it to be interested in and need. So, for example, Amazon is pretty ubiquitous for most of us, I think, because they deliver anywhere. Get Prime, it delivers for free, and watch out. Get yourself set up to look for things like we provide a lot of stuff. I provide a ton of coffee pods. I don't just provide like 4 coffee pods and they got to bring their own. There are probably 50 coffee pods in the house available to the guests of all different sorts. And I set targets for deals. Like I don't want to pay more than 20 cents a pod. I don't have, $1.50 pods in the house.
Wait a minute. You do provide coffee pods for the guests?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. I stopped providing bulk coffee because nobody ever did it. Nobody ever used it. I used to have a pound of something, Tully's, maybe Starbucks, whatever, pre-ground. It sits in the freezer. I even put Cafe Bustelo in there for a while, which is a really good dark roast coffee from, I think, Costa Rica, right? Really popular coffee. Nobody touched it, but the pods go just fine.
Huh.
But you got to spend some money to make the money. But the money is not necessarily the cash, it's the reviews, because the reviews generate more people who get more reviews, who use more coffee that they didn't have to pay for. And then more reviews mean more guests. And so that's what you want. Not everybody's going to be the same. Everybody's, so many people, they seem to skimp on the little things that are very cheap. If I spend $150 a year on coffee pods for the whole season, I think I probably overspent at that point. I'm not, it runs the gamut. If there's something interesting I've never seen before and people I think would like it. And the fact of the matter is that you never know. Coffee is so subjective, but I stopped putting out like condiments. I had bulk ketchup and mustard in there and I got a lot of PMs on that from people. What if they spit in that? What if they're putting poison in there? Like, well, you're renting to the wrong people if they're putting poison in the ketchup.
Yeah.
Because
you got bigger problems.
Yeah, I rent to people. I mean, our place is $329 a night right now. That's what we get. And that weeds out, you're not going to get, people who poison mustard in there for that kind. They're not going to steal stuff.
I spent $1,200 to come poison your mustard.
Yeah, I say so excited. I can't wait to see how this shakes out. Yeah, they're not going to do that. But I did take it to heart and I stopped offering it because people bring their own condiments and it's fine. But like if you open up one cupboard right next to the refrigerator, there are 50 bulk spices in there of everything you can imagine. I have flour and sugar and all that stuff. And you just have to watch and pay attention for sales. Now, things like the electronics I set up for TVs, and I set up a lot more stuff now that I'm doing Mike's deals of the day. I try to find the best, like that television that I posted, that 55-inch Roku TV, 5 series TCL, really good TV. Roku TV, you just can't beat, right? Easy to use. Anybody can pick up the remote and figure it out. And without any trouble, you're not getting calls on a Roku TV. You may get calls on an Android TV because they don't work as well, or a Fire TV for sure, because they're weird, right? More flaky. So, but I never know what I'm going to find and what's going to work. Things like the Costco Grandeur Hospitality white towels. They go on sale about every 3 months. That's what we use. I wouldn't use any other towel. I wouldn't try any other towel. They are a really good towel. The sheets, I use a specific sheet. I tried some other sheets early on. I tried some of the Tencel sheets, if you're familiar with Tencel, which is a wood fiber from Australia that is kind of like bamboo in some ways. It's very soft, but it is as durable as a flower petal. It is not durable, and it pills up like you would not believe. Just takes one person with some craggy toenail in there, and all of a sudden that sheet is done, and you got to toss it. So if you're going to do sheets, I mean, everybody's got their preference. I do white sheets because then I see everything that's wrong with them. They are a percal weave, not a sateen weave. Everybody loves sateen weaves. They're so soft and nice. They wear like flower petals. They are done in a season. You want to get a percal weave, and it's got to not, I mean, you want to have 100% cotton. That's awesome. If you want to do a really high end 100% cotton sheet in your high end rental, because it'll probably survive, but you got to have some polyester in there for regular rentals because it adds the durability to the sheet, keeps it from breaking down. And I still have the original sheets from 5 years ago. You know, it's just about maintenance and keeping up and having plenty of them. I still have the same, I still have them, and they still look pretty much the same. They don't pill, they don't break down. They're 70/30 cotton polyester from Kohl's, the big one. They're not even expensive. You know, I buy them on sale and throw them in there. And I do have some 70/30 like Mintex and stuff, that just extra pillowcases because they take a lot of abuse, right? You know, don't use bleach on your sheets. Just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Use other laundry sanitizer. Bleach binds with human oil and it makes your sheets yellow.
Yep.
Guaranteed.
I don't even do white sheets because I know they're going to turn yellow at some point.
If you use bleach, they do. If you don't, they won't. Like I said, 5 years now, I do not have a yellow sheet.
Nice. Yeah, the white sheet thing has been an ongoing debate for years in this business, but I agree. I do cotton sheets. I do cotton sheets. I go a little over the top, but I get the California design dents from Amazon. Nothing crazy, you know. They're like $60, maybe $50 for a king,
right?
And they last a long time, but they're not going to last forever. They're definitely not going to last forever.
No. And I don't have the numbers that you have. Our rental is very seasonal. It's empty right now. It's been empty since Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving ended. That was our last set of guests. And now we're pretty much not going to probably see anybody until April is when our first guests arrive. And I knew that because we're too far from skiing. Skiing is an hour and a half away. And in the snow and the ice, nobody wants to drive an hour and a half to go skiing. They'll just stay near the mountain. There are rentals there. That lake behind me is covered with ice right now. It is a solid sheet of ice all the way across. It's probably melted a little bit. The temperatures have been warmer, so it's probably melted. But one thing that's entertaining is you can watch that ice flow go down this way, and then the St. Joe current gets a hold of it, and then it pushes it back up here, and it goes all the way up, and then the Coeur d'Alene River catches it, and it just flows back and forth, and it's kind of mesmerizing.
So, do you go there in the off season, or when do you go? Just whenever you feel like it?
Yeah, whenever I haven't been there since just after Thanksgiving to do a few repairs. The people said one of the banister handles broke, and we didn't have any guests, so I go over there, and still in, even though it's been almost, it's going to be 6 years here in 2 months since we bought it. I'm still in that, I just can't leave it alone type thing. And this is something that's going to probably plague a lot of new short-term rental owners. You just plunk down $500,000 on a property, your first one, and you're going to worry about it. And you want to go over. If it's fairly close, you're going to want to go over. If it's like within 6-7 hours, you're going to drive over there and you want to check on it. I got to check this. I got to check that. And I still haven't gotten over that. So I go over there. I haven't, like I said, I go over there every couple of months in the off season to dust, collect whatever bugs have gotten inside. We have Western pine beetles in the house during the fall or during the fall and into through the winter. They winter inside the house. They get in. I have no
What
idea.
is that? It's just from a tree?
Yeah, it's just a
Huh.
little bug. Lives in all the pines. You know, the
Oh, it's a
ponderosa
bug.
pines. Yeah, it's a bug.
Huh.
Yeah, western pine beetle. It's just a little bug. It's
Oh, beetle.
harmless.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's a beetle. Yeah, it's a harmless little bug. It's fairly good size. I mean, it's about a quarter of an inch. It's and it flies, but it doesn't fly much. It just hangs out and it winters and then it goes back outside. They live for a few years and and then springtime rolls around and all the ladybugs come charging in. We have a
Yeah.
lot of
Oh,
ladybugs.
yeah. We've got those too. They come out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then spiders, we have quite a few spiders and I try to collect them, but for the most part, I leave them alone because they keep other bugs down in the house. So,
Yeah. So, in other words, if you're the type of person that can buy a second home and go there and actually enjoy it, and relax, then short-term rentals probably not for you because I can't do that. When
well,
I go,
I would disagree. I'm going to have to disagree with you. I think that is a good way to get started. If it's somewhat close, it's more comfortable for you as an owner, right? If your first house, I live in LA and my first house is in Pigeon Forge, you never see it. Maybe you've never seen it. You just seen photos, and so you have it set up, and then you never go there. And a lot of people can do that, but for the most first time people, you read the forum, you read all these questions. It's almost all of it has to do with analysis paralysis
yes.
and management, how I can manage it from 2 or 3 hours away. I mean, I'm 2 hours away, and it's like, well, it's not that far. If you're within that, it makes a comfort level for people to be somewhat close. If they can, I mean, if you're living in Coffeyville, Kansas, where Paul
Yeah.
lives,
Yeah.
you're not doing short-term rental vacation rentals
No,
because
no.
nobody goes there.
Yeah. Different kind of short-term.
Right. But if you live in an area like where I live, there are a lot of short-term rentals. And I don't invest in Washington due to the political climate here. It's not real conducive to owners. Owners are considered the enemy for the most part in Western Washington. So I don't put any money here. Idaho, on the other hand, is all about the owners, right? The tenants have rights just like anywhere else, but it's I can if I need a sheriff out to the house, I can call and they'll be out there, no problem, and they'll toss people out of that house without any issue, and I don't have to worry about it because there's no laws protecting a 2 week stay. Um, but in the end, if you live in an area or within an area that has like a really nice big lake or something like that, if you bought that, you get to use it, but you also get to experience what it's like to own a short-term rental and still keep an eye on it. And it adds a comfort level that for a new owner, that you can see it, you can look at it. It's a tangible asset. It's not some mysterious thing that's 3,000 miles away that I own. Now, when you get to the point where you're at, you got properties all over the place doing all kinds of different stuff. So you can walk away from it a lot easier because that's your business. But for a lot of people, I mean, we'll maybe get one or two more rentals, but I'm not a young whippersnapper anymore. I'm not going to go out and try to get 5 properties a year and leverage everything to try to, because we're on the downside. We're not on the upside. I mean, and that's another thing for the most part that we talk about so much on the forums is who should be doing short-term rentals. I mean, we all do it, but should a 21-year-old be doing short-term rentals? Arbitrage? I don't think so. And that's why now I'm starting to recommend to young people, we get these young folks in, and I said, get yourself an FHA finance duplex, live in one, have rent the other, get a fourplex if you can do it, and then build up and then do a short-term rental after you've got some experience and some money, rather than trying to jump in to a short-term rental, which, it can be a problem. No matter how well you set yourself up, you really never know what's going to happen, especially in a city.
Absolutely. All right, Michael, a book you've read recently that was awesome.
Short-term wealth, long
Other way around.
short-term rental, long-term wealth.
Yeah.
I actually haven't read the book.
Oh, you
I
should.
have. I know I'm the worst. But I haven't read any books recently. I can't remember.
Okay, that's all
To
right.
be honest, I hate to do it. I am wearing the T-shirt from the last concert I was at.
Oh, Steely Dan. There you go. Last
Yep,
concert.
that's my last concert.
Okay, that's good. I like that. That's cool. Maybe I
Yeah,
should start asking that. Most recent book or most recent or recent concert. I like
yeah,
that. I'm trying
yeah.
to pull up one that I'm actually reading a book called Getting the Love You Want, which has nothing to do with business, but it's a great book. It's actually one of it was a recommendation from another book I just read. But yeah, absolutely nothing to do with rental or business, but fantastic nonfiction. I think it was one of the very first Oprah book club books.
Oh,
I didn't know that until I started reading it, but it is good. Well, anyway, brother, great to see you. You'll be on the Bigger Pockets short-term rental boot camp, which I'm one of the coaches on there, and you handle a lot of the moderation, etc. So we'll see you on there. You can find that at biggerpockets.com. Just search for boot camps.
yeah. The boot camp
And
starts today, everybody.
it
If you're
starts
in the
today.
boot
That's
camp,
right.
that's
Yep.
right. It opens up today. You can go start watching the recordings and get ready for the first Q&A, which is next week.
Next
And
week.
I will be in the Q&A behind the scenes answering questions from the chat. And I'll be managing the forums.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, great to see you, brother, and we'll catch you soon, and don't overthink it.
Take care, man. Thank you.
Thank you.